Hello viewers, I'm your host Pratiksha Mishra with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. The Indian Navy marked Navy Day on December 4th, honoring its historic contribution to the nation's security. This year's theme, Strength and Power Through Innovation and Indigenization, highlighted the Navy's commitment to modernization and self-reliance. As part of its forward-looking vision, the Navy is significantly enhancing its operational capabilities with a robust plan to induct advanced warships and submarines over the next decade. Notably, the Navy is set to debut its first indigenous nuclear attack submarines, marking a major milestone in its quest for strategic autonomy and strengthening its deterrence capabilities on the global stage.
Each year on December 4, the Indian Navy observes Navy Day, commemorating the heroic Operation Trident, the bold attack on Karachi harbour during the 1971 Indo-Pak War. This pivotal operation marked a decisive moment in India's naval history and showcased the Navy's ability to defend the nation's maritime interests. The celebration honors the Navy's unwavering commitment to the defense of India's coastlines and maritime trade routes. The day also serves as a reminder of the Navy's significant role in maintaining peace and stability in the Indian Ocean region. The theme for this year, Strength and Power Through Innovation and Indigenization, reflected the Navy's focus on modernization, technological innovation, and indigenization of defense assets to ensure greater self-reliance.
4 दिसंबर 1971 का दिन भारतीय नौसेना और देश के इतिहास में एक बहुत ही ऐतिहासिक दिन है। 4 दिसंबर 1971 में जब इंडो-पाक वॉर स्टार्ट हुआ था, उस समय भारतीय नौसेना के जहाज़ों ने कराची के बंदरगाह पे एक बहुत ही घातक हमला करके कराची के शहर को almost unusable बना दिया था।
On Navy Day, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended his heartfelt greetings to the brave personnel of the Indian Navy, praising their unwavering commitment that ensures the safety, security, and prosperity of the nation. Additionally, President Draupadi Murmu participated in the Navy Day celebrations and witnessed an impressive operational demonstration by the Indian Navy at Odisha's Puri beach. Meanwhile, Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh Kumar Tripathi highlighted the Navy's forward-looking vision, which includes an ambitious plan to enhance its fleet with more than 90 new warships and submarines over the next decade. Admiral Tripathi also shared updates on the Indian Navy's long-term submarine building program, which includes the commissioning of its first fully indigenously designed nuclear attack submarines by 2036 to 37.
In 2015, the government amended this, that instead of having all the 12 submarines which are conventional, the 6 submarines were made to be the nuclear-powered SSNs. So the first part, that is the conventional submarines, will obviously we are carrying out preliminary work on that, and they will be purely designed and built in India. There will be no foreign assistance required. Similarly, for the SSNs, 2 have been now granted approval. We have started work on that. We have spoken to all the stakeholders. I chaired a meeting last month, and we have got now a plan of action as to how to move so that the first SSN is inducted into our nation and in the Navy roughly by 2036-37.
The Indian Navy has been strengthening its capabilities while actively supporting the Make in India initiative through a series of strategic projects. In October 2024, the Navy established a new very low frequency station in Telangana's Vikrabad to enhance military communication capabilities. Additionally, the Navy also signed a contract for the short refit and dry docking of the INS Vikramaditya, India's aircraft carrier, with Cochin Shipyard Limited in November 2024. Furthermore, the launch of the first multi-purpose vessel, Samarthak, and the commissioning of the INS Sandhayak, a survey ship, underscore India's growing self-reliance in defence manufacturing. The Navy is significantly expanding its fleet with numerous ships and submarines currently under construction and additional orders in place. These initiatives highlight the Navy's pivotal role in national security, maritime safety, and disaster response. The Indian Navy not only safeguards the country's coastline but also monitors vital maritime trade routes. It plays an essential role in humanitarian assistance during natural disasters and crises.
In the UK Parliament, lawmakers raised serious concerns over the escalating persecution of religious minorities in Pakistan. They discussed the misuse of the blasphemy laws, which disproportionately target Christians, Hindus, and Ahmadis, leading to violence and unjust imprisonments. Lawmakers also addressed the alarming rise in forced conversions, particularly of young girls from religious minorities. Additionally, they criticized Pakistan's educational system for perpetuating religious intolerance through biased textbooks. A report.
Concerns are growing over the alarming reports of discrimination, violence, and persecution against religious minorities in Pakistan. One of the key issues is the misuse of Pakistan's controversial blasphemy laws, which have been increasingly used as tools to target religious minorities. Recently, in the UK Parliament, lawmakers raised serious concerns about the ongoing persecution of religious minorities in Pakistan, highlighting alarming reports of discrimination, violence, and human rights abuses.
Since the 1980s, many thousands, and I mean thousands of cases have been reported disproportionately affecting Christians, Hindus, Ahmadis. These laws are used not only to silence dissent, but also as tools for personal vendettas and mob incitement. When I was in Pakistan back in 2023, Madam Deputy Speaker, I remember meeting some of those who had been had been charged with blasphemy law, defaming or defaming the blasphemy laws, but were found that the allegations were vindictive and malicious, and there was no evidential base whatsoever for them. So I think I want to highlight that as well. These accusations, of course, have led to extrajudicial killings, violent attacks, mass displacements.
In addition to legal challenges, religious minorities in Pakistan are increasingly vulnerable to forced conversions. Young girls from Christian and Hindu communities are especially at risk, with rising reports of abductions and coerced conversions. The country's educational system only exacerbates the problem, fostering religious intolerance and further marginalizing these minorities. In the UK Parliament, lawmakers also expressed deep concern over the educational system's role in perpetuating these injustices.
Pakistan's legal framework ostensibly guarantees religious freedom under its constitution, yet the reality is far, far different. The single national curriculum, and just in 2021, has been criticised for marginalised religious minorities. Textbooks continue to perpetuate stereotypes, fostering intolerance amongst the next generation. And we have to be very careful what we do and what Pakistan does in relation to education. We had hoped that on our visit there some time ago, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we would see some of the changes, that we would see the opportunities coming to when it says, Pakistan says they set so many jobs aside for religious minority groups. The fact is we don't see that.
The UK Parliament also discussed the growing repression in Balochistan, where resistance is being harshly suppressed by the authorities. The lawmakers highlighted the ongoing struggles in the region, particularly the women-led peace movements.
forms of repression that are taking place are producing a resistance movement. Unfortunately, some of that is an armed resistance movement, and we've seen what have been classified as terrorist actions as well. And so therefore there's a deterioration. But there is a peace movement, and the peace movement that's taking place is largely led by women, and they've been instigating marches over this last 12 months. But unfortunately, what we're finding now is that those women are being arrested, and the peace movement and human rights movement in Baluchistan is now being savagely repressed.
The misuse of blasphemy laws, the alarming rise in forced conversions, and the role of Pakistan's educational system in perpetuating intolerance collectively highlight a deep-rooted systematic failure to protect the rights of religious minorities. These issues are interconnected, reinforcing each other and creating an environment where vulnerable communities are subjected to abuse with little recourse for justice.
Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
Protesters in South Korea gathered in the capital Seoul for candlelight vigil, demanding the resignation of President Yoon Suk-yeol after his botched attempt to impose martial law. Many gathered for the rally, where they held candles, placards and banners while listening to speeches and performances. Yoon's declaration of martial law on December 3rd sought to consolidate power, ban political activity, and censor the media in Asia's fourth largest economy and a key US ally. India and Bhutan discussed bilateral projects in the field of electricity and urban planning during the visit of King Jigme Khesar and Queen Jitsun Pema. Wangchuk met Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and both sides reiterated continued collaboration on multiple fronts, including the Gilufu Mindfulness City project and hydropower. Hamad Al-Balawi, head of Saudi Arabia's 2034 World Cup bid, stated that the country has made significant progress in human rights while aiming to attract more fans than ever to the 48th showpiece event. Saudi Arabia is the sole bidder for 2034 World Cup, with FIFA set to vote on it next week amid concerns about the country's human rights record. Al-Balawi said the strides in human rights, especially in labor laws, are part of Saudi Arabia's commitment to transforming its social and economic landscape under Vision 2030.
The situation in Bangladesh continues to worsen as religious minorities face increasing violence and repression. The brutal attack on a lawyer defending Hindu monk Chinmoy Krishnadas highlights the growing risk for those advocating for minority rights. Das' arrest on sedition charges has sparked widespread concern, with reports of hundreds of incidents of violence targeting the Hindu community since August. International voices, including UK MPs, are raising alarm over the escalating violence and the failure to protect minority communities. A report.
A Bangladeshi lawyer who was defending Hindu monk Chinmoy Krishnadas has been brutally attacked by Islamists at his home. The lawyer is now in the intensive care unit fighting for his life. ISKCON India, which reported the attack, describes it as a sign of the growing dangers faced by those defending the rights of religious minorities in Bangladesh. This attack follows a series of violent incidents in Bangladesh following the monk's arrest. Arrested on November 25th at Dhaka airport, Chinmoy Krishnadas is facing sedition charges for allegedly disrespecting Bangladesh's national flag during a rally in October. According to reports, lawyers denied appearing for him during the bail hearing in a court. The charges and his arrest have sparked controversy and fear for the safety of religious minorities in the country. The incident has added to the growing tensions between India and Bangladesh, which have been escalating following the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. While India has raised concerns over the situation, the international community is beginning to condemn the violence. Recently, British MPs brought up the violence against Bangladesh Hindus in the UK Parliament.
Since the fall of the previous government in August of this year, Bangladesh has seen more than 2,000 incidents of violence, most of which have been targeted against the minority Hindu community. Hindus make up less than 10% of the Bangladesh population, and my honourable friend will be aware that anti-Hindu violence has been a recurrent event in the country, and indeed the Jamaat-e-Islami party was earlier this year banned after riots in which 200 people were killed. But whilst Bangladesh no longer has the secular constitution of 1971 and became an Islamic state in 1988, there are nonetheless supposed to be protections for minority religions under Articles 28, 39 and others of the constitution. These appear not to be being enforced.
In response to the deteriorating situation and arrest of Hindu religious leader, Bangladeshi feminist author Taslima Nasreen, who was forced to flee the country for her outspoken writings, expressed her concerns on social media. She pointed out the double standards in the country's approach to flags, highlighting how the placement of the saffron flag above the Bangladeshi flag is deemed treasonous, while the flag of the extremist group Hizb ut-Tahrir, when placed above national flag, is considered patriotic. Meanwhile, protests against the treatment of minorities in Bangladesh are being held across India, drawing attention to the growing repression. UK MP Priti Patel has called for the British Parliament to outline its engagement with Bangladesh on this critical issue.
The degree of escalation in the violence is deeply, deeply concerning. And what we are witnessing now is just uncontrolled violence in many quarters. And we are now watching with horror and shock as further violence is spread in Bangladesh. And all our thoughts in this House are most definitely with the diaspora community here and those who are affected in Bangladesh. These are deeply disturbing reports. So given the current instability in Bangladesh and since the departure of the former Prime Minister in August, this is a moment of deep concern. Many governments are condemning the violence and calling for peace and law and order to be restored. So I welcome the comments from the Minister, but I must emphasise that all efforts must be taken now.
As international pressure mounts, the situation in Bangladesh remains tense, with religious minorities facing an increasingly hostile environment. The attacks and arrests are a stark reminder of the dangerous climate for those advocating for religious freedom and human rights in the country.
Sectarian violence in Pakistan's Kurram district has spiraled out of control, plunging the region deeper into chaos. A large number of lives have been claimed, with Shia Muslims particularly targeted in ruthless attacks even under the supposed protection of military and police escorts. A recent ambush in Lower Kurram's Orchard area starkly highlights the deep fractures within the nation, where fragile ceasefires crumble and the state's promises of security prove empty. Take a look.
Deadly sectarian violence continues to ravage Pakistan's northwestern Kurram district, where over 130 lives have been lost in the past 10 days, despite a tentative ceasefire. The latest ambush on 2 passenger vans in Lower Kurram's Orchard area highlights the perilous plight of Shia Muslims under militant attacks, even with police and military escorts. The victims, mostly Shia Muslims traveling from Parachinar, were attacked as their convoy entered Sunni-majority villages. Disturbing footage from the scene reveals the horrifying aftermath: blood-soaked streets, destroyed vehicles, and grief-stricken survivors. Parachinar resident Nasir Hussain condemned the state's inability to ensure safety.
پرون کومه دلخراش واقع شوی دی او د مین روډ نه سکیورټي حصار کې د دې کې کومه کنوایي و هغه آرمي او د پولیس اف سی نگرانۍ کې کار داسې دی چې دغه علاقې کې بار بار واقعات کېږي مین روډ دی دا د ریاست ذمه داري دی چې دا روډ کلیر کړي او د کومه کروایي شوي دی په کار دی فورا د کومه ناصر دی د دهشتګرد د ناصر دغه کروایي وشي دا د فورا ونیولی شي.
Pakistan's military has faced harsh criticism for its handling of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's volatile tribal regions. Over the years, the military's alliances with tribal factions, many harboring Sunni extremist sympathizers, have exacerbated sectarian tensions. Instead of fostering stability, these partnerships have emboldened extremist militias like the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Hafiz Gul Bahadur faction and others, fueling the rise of violence as a tool of dominance. Hospitals in Parachinar struggle to manage the fallout.
روان دي سچویشن چې کوم جاری دی په دې کې لګبګ 50 کسان موږ سره کوم دي هغه ډیډ بوډیز ریسیو شوي دي او تقریبا 100 نه زیات چې کوم دي هغه موږ سره زخمیان دي زخمیانو کې ډیر داسې و چې هغه موږ کور ته ولېږلو کوم چې سیریس وو هغه موږ مینیج کړي دي هغه مو ریټین کړي دي هغه ټریټمنټ روان دی هغه چې کوم سرجریز دی هغه ډے نایټ 24/7 موږ هغه سرجریز جاری ساتلي دي هغه سره د وجې نه.
Kurram district, bordering Afghanistan, has long been a flashpoint for sectarian strife. The influence of militant groups linked to the Afghan Taliban further destabilizes the region, exploiting the Sunni-Shia divide for their agendas. The Shia community in Kurram remains under siege, trapped in a cycle of fear and violence. Despite government assurances, Pakistan's fractured governance and failure to act decisively against rising extremism have left its citizens vulnerable to the unchecked power of radicalized factions. The devastating events in Kurram serve as a stark reminder of Pakistan's growing inability to protect its citizens. As the death toll climbs and despair grows, the pressing question remains: will the state finally act, or will it allow sectarian militias to continue tearing the nation apart?
With violence on rise, the hope for peace in Pakistan appears increasingly out of reach. And with that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.